I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're spending this hour focused on our minds in a very spiritual sense. And we're doing that with Buddhist teacher Mikey Noechel of the Wild Heart Meditation Center in East Nashville. He may bring peace and calm to the people in his presence now, but his story is an interesting one. There's addiction, punk rock, spiritual searching, and there's still searching, and even a little bit of punk rock, which we'll talk about, but less pain and addiction in his own life, and that's a lot of what he helps others with. Mikey Noechel, welcome to This is Nashville.
Oh, what is up, Blake? Peace and love, peace and love. My heart is full being here today. What's up, 615 Nashville, my people? My heart is open to all y'all.
The heart is open. So let's start kind of with the open heart and facing the new year before we dig into your own story. How does a Buddhist, especially a Buddhist teacher, face the new year? Are there practices? Are there traditions?
Yeah, totally. So when it comes to facing the new year, really we're facing a new moment in every moment. So this gives us the opportunity to face this present time experience with a bit of volition, a bit of intention, as we call it. And so at Wild Heart Meditation Center, for New Year's Eve, 10 p.m. to past midnight, we do an intention setting ceremony. And this word intention often is synonymous with the word goal, but in a Buddhist context, it means something quite different. Intention is a mindfulness practice. And so when we look at this word mindfulness, you know, it's everywhere, like such a common thing. I remember when people were like, what's mindfulness?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had an interview a couple weeks ago that was half of it was about mindfulness, and that wasn't even the point.
Yeah. And now it's just like, oh, it's part of our everyday language. But that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah.
So it was in the late 1800s, and I'll get to this point about the New Year's. It was in the late 1800s, a guy named Rhys Davids, a British guy, went over to Sri Lanka to translate these old Buddhist texts, and he came across this word sati, S-A-T-I. And this word, translated into English, he used mindfulness. So now we have mindfulness. But if we look at this word sati, its more literal translation, it means to remember. So we're practicing mindfulness of breathing. We get lost in thought. We remember to come back to the breath. Mindfulness of body. Well, we remember to come back to the body. Mindfulness of mind. Remember, oh, that's just a thought. I don't have to believe every thought I think. So with intention, it's what are we coming back with in this moment? Am I coming back with aggression? Am I coming back with resentment? Am I coming back with irritation? Or am I coming back with kindness, compassion, joy, celebration? And so when we set an intention, we have certain things we want to remember to come back to. Brief story. You got time for a story?
I think that's what we invited you
Let's
in for.
do a
Bring
story.
it.
So one year at Wild Heart Meditation Center, we had a New Year's intention setting ceremony, and I was very much wrapped up in my work. Like, I love my work. I see miracles every day. It is easy to get wrapped up in my work. And I also needed to have fun. And so one year, for my New Year's intention, I set the intention to have fun. And we have these things like blessing cords. I actually have them on my wrist right now, if you could see.
Oh, yeah.
So it helps us remember our intention.
Got it.
And where I live near Percy Priest Lake, as many of you probably listening to, quite a large lake. And I was walking, and I walked to Percy Priest Lake, and I look over the lake, and a thought popped in my head. It said, oh, you should jump into the lake. And then resistance rose. Said, no. You'll have your clothes are wet. You'll be cold. You don't want to do that. But I remembered my intention to have fun. And I jumped into the lake.
Wow. Well, so are you telling me the Buddhist tradition is to set an intention? You don't really call it a goal; it's intentions, but intention is sort of central to the Buddhist practice anyway. Correct?
Sure. It's the second factor of what we call the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the training program to help us end our own personal suffering.
Yeah. Well, so much of your work has been with the recovery community, often folks dealing with some kind of addiction. I wonder how you use this sort of moment, the promise of a new year, to help people's mindset who are in recovery at whatever stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to addiction recovery, that promise, I don't know if there's a promise of a new year. There's a promise of a new moment right here and now. And so it gives us some agency as people in recovery to choose what we want in this moment and then the following moment. That we are all products of what we call in the Buddhist world, I'm going to get weird, cause and condition. So what happened in the past led us up to this moment. And so what happened in the past is the past. Can't change the past. Almost like this sense of forgiveness, forgiving our pasts. Lily Tomlin has the saying, forgiveness is abandoning all hope for a better past. So we have our past, can't control that. Mm. Also the future is just a thought. Can't control the future, but we have right here and now. What can I do right here and now to better this moment? Mm. And so therefore I will have some influence on the future. And that's what that practice of mindfulness helps us to understand, that the past is a memory, future is a fantasy. What we got right here and now gives us some space to go, okay, can I meet this moment with kindness? Can I meet this moment with compassion? In recovery, most of us, if not all of us, fell into addiction because we're in a great deal of pain. And we just didn't know what to do with that pain. So we got hooked to substances and behaviors that maybe made it worse before it made it better. But now, when we have these practices of like compassion is a way to be in a heartfelt space with our pain. We can start meeting this moment to say yes to the pain. Yeah, you are here. Mm. I can live with this pain with an open heart rather than closing it off into addiction. Yeah. And then therefore, okay, what's in the next moment? And what's the next moment and the next moment?
Well, you answered the question well, because I wondered if folks who are, you want to set a New Year's resolution, stop, fill in the blank, stop drinking, stop whatever. And I could imagine that could be kind of defeating, even when people think of this as a moment that you're, making goals, setting intentions.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Just like cutting out the behavior as if it didn't serve you.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of like even addiction. We're always, it's easy to say what's wrong about addiction. Oh yeah, that, destroyed my life. That's easy. But the question is what's right about addiction? How are my behaviors, even if you're not even calling it addiction, just an unwanted behavior, how is this serving me right now? And a lot of it is just like, I just don't feel okay. Mm. And I feel anxious. I know
it leads you to an answer about the root problem.
Exactly. It leads you to and then how can I be with this root problem? And a lot of that is community. Like we regulate emotions with another person. And so when it comes to like New Year's, getting with people that are like-minded, that are willing to say, hey, what's going on in that heart? Tell me about it. Mm. Yeah.
If you're just joining us, my guest is Mikey Noechel, a Buddhist teacher who leads the Wild Heart Meditation Center in East Nashville. Where did your path to Buddhism start?
Yeah. Okay. Taking a trip back, is that okay?
Let's go.
Okay. Well, I was born middle-class, suburban United States, not a very common place to find Buddhism. The 80s and the 90s, if you remember, Just Say No to Drugs campaign was going on. The DARE program came to my school.
I remember DARE.
Yep.
STAR program, STARS, something like that. We also had at our school.
Yeah.
Private school.
Yeah. Great intentions. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, there was a lot of stigma around drugs, alcohol, addiction, mental illness, emotions in general. And so I was very much a product of my environment. I was taught to act the part, keep appearances about me.
And what part of the country were you in?
This was in Northwest Florida.
Okay.
So, yeah, shout out 850 Fort Walton Beach.
Fort Walton!
Yeah.
Chime in the chat. All right, go on.
And then, so with this, like stigma around like emotions and addictions, I come from an alcoholic family. My father was an alcoholic. I come from divorced parents. And I went through life just hiding all of that, hiding how I felt about it and hiding what was happening in my home.
Your appearances, keep up appearances.
Keep up
that
appearances.
Was sort of the mandate or implied.
Yeah. And then, so I just went through the motions. Went to college, fumbled my way through college, got a professional job that I really didn't fit in at, but I was just trying. And one night I was out shopping for professional looking clothes to try to fit in this professional job that I had. And my mom called me. And my mom called me because she was trying to get a hold of my father. And they were divorced at the time, but they still spoke with each other. My mom's like, hey, I can't get a hold of your father. And I was like, my mom worries. It's cool. I got it. So I put down the shopping for these professional looking clothes and I drive to my dad's house. And I get to my dad's house and I see his car's there. So I walk up to the door and knock on the door and he didn't answer. So I shout, hey, Dad, it's me. Let me in. Didn't answer. I had a key to his house and opened the door and found my dad dead on his living room floor. And like, it gets kind of blurry there, but I still know like how I feel. Like,
oh yeah,
like my dad was a weirdo, worked in the music industry, partied with rock stars that I looked up to, and like I've always kind of felt like a weirdo. And my dad was like my weird best friend, And that loss, that grief, I was taught to keep that inside and not talk about it. And so I turned to two of the things that have supported me, which, talking about things that support me, alcohol and punk rock. I remember my first punk rock show. It was a band called Zayo, and I'm like a kid. I go up and I'm watching the show, and the singer is aggressively talking about, I'm going to try to keep it somewhat polite, but like one of his friends dying from things we die from, like on stage, screaming about emotions. And so like I come from a culture where we don't talk about our emotions. And I go to my first punk rock show and they're up there screaming about emotions. And I was like, I'm home. So there's such a validation that there's a hard time in life.
Yeah.
There's such a validation that we're feeling unpleasant, terrible, awful things. Maybe some of these things that may want to kill us are happening inside of us. And so after my father's death, I just went to punk rock.
I see.
And that was,
So before Buddhism, there was punk rock.
I'll get to the point where Buddhism gets here. Because, at these punk rock shows, making punk rock friends, we were living recklessly. I'd have a friend here 1 second, they'd be gone. And another friend, 1 second, they're gone. I've been jumped. I've been stabbed. I've been in the chaos. And something happened in the early 2000s. There was an intersection between punk rock and Buddhism. It's like these two worlds don't go together.
Right.
Books like Dharma Punks by Noah Levine and Hardcore Zen by Brad Warner that were taking that validation that I got from that very first punk show and putting spiritual practices and principles to it. If you know the Buddhist first noble truth, it's this truth of dukkha. It's the truth of suffering. And that's music to my ears. Coming up in an upbringing that we weren't allowed to talk about suffering, or if we're suffering, it means there's something wrong about us. And then Buddhism's like, we're all suffering. Not just the punk rockers, all of us. All of us experience death. All of us experience aging, illness, loss, separation from things we hold dear. And when I started to get that validation, I just kept on reading more and more about Buddhism. And I came across this book, beautiful book. It's called At Hell's Gate by a guy named Claude Anshin Thomas. And it tells the story of a Vietnam veteran living with post-traumatic stress and addiction. And eventually he becomes a Buddhist monk. Wild story. So I was working at this bar restaurant in Destin, Florida. Shout out
I was
again
about to say, we're
850.
still on the, in the panhandle.
So, and when I was working at this place, I had a floppy blue mohawk, dreadlock rat tail. So
Wow.
Yeah. I looked wild. So they had me be like the front door guy, the guy that's like,
okay.
I have a way of riling people up. And one night I was reading this book by Claude Anshin Thomas, this Vietnam veteran Buddhist monk and page turner. I couldn't put it down, but I was like, I gotta put this down and go to work. And so I am at work with all the tourists, and something I never saw before was there was a group of Buddhist nuns. They were German. And I was like,
in Destin, Florida.
In Destin, Florida. I was like, what is this? So I like run up to these Buddhist nuns because I'm like, I just read all these books about Buddhism. What is this? And then within that group of German Buddhist nuns was Claude Anshin Thomas, the author of the book I was just reading.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this sounds very similar to the person who you say is your first teacher.
That is.
That's what happened?
He became
you
my first
were reading
teacher.
the book of your first teacher who happened to be standing near you?
There's a saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it is literally true in my experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get back to that, but I do wonder. There's been a lot of miles traveled since then. I mean, that was what, 15 years ago, maybe more.
Oh, more than that. Yeah.
So, but Buddhism is now your life's work, and I just wonder, here in Nashville, how does Buddhism play? In the Bible Belt.
Yeah. Buddhism has a wonderful way of adapting to the cultures, communities, the language it finds itself in. Like it started in northern India, Siddhartha Gautama, deep respect to that guy. And so 2,600 years ago, starting in northern India, it just starts to spread. It's spread to like Japan, where there's like Taoism and non-dualism, so we end up with a non-dual Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. Or it spreads to Tibet, where they have a lot of imagery with their folk religion of Bon, and now we have Vajrayana Buddhism. And now it's spreading to places like the Southeast United States. And as it spreads places like here, it's not mixing with like the religions. It's actually mixing with mental health. In like 100 years from now, they're going to be like, oh, those are those like mental health psychology Buddhists,
I see.
And so most, if not all, of the people that come to Wild Heart Meditation Center come for some sort of, they're come for their suffering. It's like what gets us through that door at Wild Heart is suffering. And it's like, that's that validation that I needed, is like, what brings us together? We're all suffering. And so sitting in a room of people, whether that be suffering of addiction, suffering from depression, suffering from anxiety, whatever it is, we'll take you. Listener, whatever you got right now, we got you, right? And it's kind of cool because Buddhism fits very well when it comes to things like religious trauma. At its core, Buddhism doesn't have a centralized belief system. It is what we would often call a non-theistic spirituality. So if you believe in God or not, that's kind of beside the point. And so many people who face religious trauma, they're like, I can't with that God stuff right now.
But they still need the community help with suffering.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
Well, we need to take our first break, and we'll get right back to that. In fact, I'll even ask you a question I heard you asking people. Do you believe in God? So we'll let that hang for a second in the air, and we'll talk more about it and get into some punk rock too. And why not go into this break with a little bit of Mikey Noechel's latest music? Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We went to the break with some hardcore punk rock from our guest, Mikey Noechel, and this isn't music from his former life. This is his latest album released in the last few months called Negativity Bias, with songs like I Still Don't Believe in You and I Got a Bad Attitude. Let's listen. Mikey Noechel, how many Buddhist punk rockers do you know?
Oh, so many.
I think that would be surprising to people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's like this movement and validation that, there's even like the Dharma punks, like groups of punk rockers that get together and meditate. But that validation is, we're suffering. And the Buddha was a punk rocker. The Buddha was anti-racist, anti-sexist. He was anti-classist. People have this image of the Buddha as if he was all love and light. And sure, he was, but he was a radical. People tried to assassinate the Buddha, So the Buddha was pretty punk. And to start your message with that, hey, they're suffering. We're suffering. What are we going to do? That's the message of punk rock right there.
Love that. Well, before the break, we were talking about spirituality, in kind of like whether Buddhism is sort of being practiced as a religion here, and you were talking about it being a little more mixed in with the mental health world. But I heard you on a podcast. I think it's called Punks of Hope. Punks of Hope.
Punks on Hope.
Punks on Hope.
Yeah.
But kind of asking each other, do you believe in God? And you said something so interesting that was basically like, I don't know, but I experience God. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know if I believe in God, but I experience God. There's a common Zen saying, Brad Warner has a book about it. There is no God, and he is always with you. In the time of the Buddha, they worshiped a god named Brahma. And when faced with these Brahmins, the Buddha wasn't really like, okay, you believe and pray to this god Brahma, but have you ever met Brahma? And they said, no. Or have you met anybody that's met Brahma? No. And he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he showed them their hearts. And we practice something called the Brahma Viharas, and that's a way of saying Brahma meaning God, Vihara meaning home. And we find God, the home of God in our heart, in 4 qualities: loving kindness, compassion, gratitude, and equanimity. And these are literal meditation practices we take on so people can experience the qualities of God. And, there's so much argument about whether God is real or not. And I don't know. I can't think of a more boring conversation. But it's like, tell me what's in your heart right now. And what's your experience around this?
Yeah. And
can we just dive in to the loving kindness? Can we dive into the compassion? And then it's like, what argument? What argument?
Oh, in other words, there's nothing to argue about here. We're talking about the same stuff. But you were saying that so often your experience here has been that Buddhism is a place that maybe people who've been traumatized somehow by religion, often Christianity, I'm sure, is kind of a place for them. How do you see that work?
Yeah. I think there's something innately in us as humans that we long for community. We need it. We are social beings. We don't do anything alone.
Yeah.
From this building to this conversation to the clothes we're wearing, food we eat, we all do it together. And that's definitely something religion has gotten right, is groups of people. So we're like, hey, we're a group of people, right? So that's first and foremost the most important thing. The other part is looking inward, seeing what's going on in each individual so we can connect as a whole. And through something like meditation, It's like, yeah, it's not necessarily praying or it's not necessarily praying to an external being. It's like just looking inside and seeing what's going on in here.
But I think meditation and mindfulness doesn't actually sound necessarily like a communal act.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's so interesting and what I appreciate about Buddhist meditation. There's a story that the Buddha's assistant, it was his younger cousin, his name's Ananda. Ananda had an insight, and he was very excited to go to the Buddha to talk about this insight. So he ran up to the Buddha and says, Buddha, 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 I got it. Half of the spiritual life is about community. And then the Buddha's like, nope, wrong. No way, man. What are you talking about? Half of the spiritual practice is about community. Wrong. 100%. The whole of the spiritual path is community. Whole. He didn't say the whole of the practice is mindfulness or whether you can sit for 30 minutes and remain still. He didn't say that's what it is. He didn't say getting into deep mental absorptions. He said friendship. Kalyanamita is the word we use for this. Spiritual friendship. I got it tattooed on my wrist right there to remember. I got it with 16 friends of mine. We all got it. Kalyanamita. And I kind of poke fun that we're Wild Heart Meditation Center, and then we're talking about a spiritual path that says meditation ain't the most important thing in this, you know?
It's a community center.
It's a community center, yeah. When we get together and sit in silence for long periods of time, but it's all about community, yeah.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer. Our guest is Mikey Noechel, lead teacher at the Wild Heart Meditation Center in East Nashville. Much of your coming to Buddhism and mindfulness and meditation, I suppose, also comes from your own recovery from addiction. What did that look like for you, and the timing of that? Take us back to Destin, Florida. There.
Yeah. Going back into my story, right? Yeah. I feel you. Meeting up with my teacher, Claude Anshin Thomas,
who randomly happened to be in the very place as you were reading his book, out front of your restaurant, and he and some nuns were right there.
And he's a modern monk. He's got a phone. Gave me his phone number. He's like, hey, call me up, and I did. And dude, saved my life. Like, anytime I could be at a meditation of his, I was there, like just showing up. So much of like what he taught me was, yes, of course, meditation, sitting still, but he taught me ethics, and the ethics of like really hard compassion. You know, I feel like sometimes I love that we're softening up as a society, being gentle with our hearts, but we also need to remember that compassion is very strong. And having a teacher that's a Vietnam veteran and a Buddhist monk, he taught me that pity and compassion are two very different things. And he just like really...
You're saying he was tough with you.
Tough love, yeah. Totally. And, addiction is just a broad spectrum for me. Like, yeah, I can identify as an alcoholic, an adult child of an alcoholic, definitely, and all of that. But really just having somebody teach me how to look inward and make peace with my conflicted heart, that was huge. Where, he was a peace advocate, but he wanted to first have a way that we can find peace within ourselves. And what peace isn't always just sitting on a fancy beach. It's like, can I face the demon within my mind and say, hey, come here. I can see you, demon. How about a hug?
So when you're working with folks, what becomes the revelation to them? Like, oh, I hadn't thought of it this way. Is there a fairly common aha moment that like this practice can help?
Yeah. A few things. First things first, the first insight I think everybody has when they just sit still in meditation is, I don't have to believe every thought my mind thinks. We start to see the true nature of thought. Before meditation, I believed every thought that popped into my head as a commandment, you know? And that got me into a lot of trouble. So when we start to meditate, we focus on something like the breath. The mind wanders, we come back to the breath. Mind wanders, we come back to the breath. Over and over and over again. Something happens over time when we keep wandering and coming back to the breath. We become disentangled with our thoughts, unblended from our thoughts, unfused from our thoughts. It doesn't mean the thoughts go away. That's the common misconception, that thoughts go away in meditation. No, we just stop overly self-identifying with them and understand, just like the eyes are seeing right now, just like the ears are hearing right now, the mind's thinking right now. It's another sense organ. It's just what the mind does. And so even as the mind says like terrible things, like sometimes I'm going to be real. Sometimes my mind wants me dead. Can I just go, hey, that's a thought, and just be gentle with that thought? Like I said, that demon, to go, hey, bro, I see you. I know. Thank you for trying to help me right now. I know you're in a lot of pain right now. Ideations. Yeah, I got you. I'm right here. You know? So it's not just like, oh, that's a thought, throw it away. It's a thought, and like, let me meet that with some kindness and compassion and understanding.
Do you find that when, especially since you'd have folks who perhaps have some, Christian trauma that find themselves in Buddhism, that they want to kind of, start dumping on Christianity somehow?
Yep. Yeah. And then it's like, that's not what we're here to do. Hatred is not appeased by hatred. The Buddha made that perfectly clear. So if you felt hate from somebody, you're not going to be able to get anywhere hating them back. That's like, that we need to make that our mission statement right now in this country, right? Like, what are we doing? Perpetuating more hatred. You're just going to make yourself more miserable. You're just going to make your environment more miserable. Cut it out, So first things first, don't be hating on Christianity because you may have been hurt by it. And, you've been hurt. Tell me about that. Tell me about your hurt. Because ultimately our hatred is just a barrier around the heart, and it's like, I see you may have bigoted beliefs, but tell me what's underneath that bigotry right now.
I see. Wow. We do need to take one more break. When we return, we'll talk about compassion in a chaotic world and mindfulness on death row. Mikey Noechel will stay with us. So should you. This is Nashville.
I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to pay my bills on time. I don't know how to wait my turn in line. I don't know how to keep my big mouth shut. I don't know the proper way to wipe my butt. I don't know when it's time to cut it out. I don't know when it's time to shut my mouth. I don't know how to have a master plan. I don't know. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person. I don't know how to be a decent person.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're wrapping our time with Mikey Noechel, a Buddhist teacher who leads the Wild Heart Meditation Center in East Nashville. Works with people in crisis as well as people who just need to stay grounded, open-hearted, and courageous in a culture that is working very hard against those virtues a lot of the time. Let's start, though, with people who are in a tough spot. How did you become the spiritual advisor for Krista Pike, who's on Tennessee's death row, scheduled to be executed, later in the year, next year?
Yeah.
Or excuse me, this year, 2026.
Correct. Ooh. Just even you bringing up her name it gives me a wave of plurality right now. It's just like, a wave of sadness, a wave of anxiety, also a wave of love, friendship. That, Krista Pike, she's been on death row for 30 years for a terrible crime she committed when she was 18 years old.
Yeah.
And, when I talk about some of these things that happen, it's just like, yeah, not that I ever planned. It's not a job application for something like this. But being a person of service, the service comes and finds you sometime.
Yeah.
And
Just like your teacher found you, I guess.
Exactly. And I remember receiving an email, saying, oh, this person, Krista Pike, I didn't know who she was. I'm not into true crime stuff or anything like that, but her name is in that world, is, that she's looking for a Buddhist spiritual advisor. And, oh, great. And then more advising for me was to, get to know her case a bit. And when I started looking up her, it's just the controlling of the narrative to believe that somebody is inherently evil, especially from a young age, just breaks my heart. That she's called a she-devil and called evil, satanic, demonic, if we're talking about these things. And my heart felt very inclined to work with her because I feel that way sometimes. It's terrible to hear those things, and then I take on working with her, and then I go into the prison and I witness another me.
Wow.
That she has this lovely Southern accent, and she says, "Oh, the Buddha," and that's my terrible Southern accent. But she says, these things that I care deeply about while she's sitting on death row.
Yeah.
And
You see her humanity while other people see the true crime story.
right, and she's inside in prison her whole life. Entire adult life,
Right.
And other people are controlling the narrative about somebody that it does not line up. Every spiritual path agrees on one thing, that redemption is possible. But some reason there's a narrative out in the world that she is unredeemable. And that is incorrect. I wish the world could see the Krista Pike that I know. Let me tell you a story just to express how I know her. So she received this date for her execution, September 30th, 2026. It hangs over me quite heavy.
Didn't have a date when you started working with her. I
Did
assume.
not have a date. And so now she wants to know what happens when you die, right? Oh, reincarnation, rebirth. Is there anything after this? And that's a complex conversation, especially in a Buddhist lens. So I ask her, what do you think happens when you die? And she says, oh, my sister, her sister is a little bit more new agey. And my sister says that we choose our lives based off of our soul's mission. And so to refine our soul to finally end up with the source or God or whatever we want to call it, we pick lifetimes to refine our soul. And I was like, okay, so you think you picked this life living on death row? She said, I guess so.
Wow.
And I said, well, then what is your soul's mission in this life? And she says, to learn forgiveness, to learn how to forgive myself, to accept forgiveness for the things I've done, and to forgive the state that is going to kill me. I'm like, I didn't see that in any article about that she-devil. What she-devil's saying that? And so who Krista is to me, my therapist asked me this question. You go to therapy and they get those questions that have you fall apart. My therapist asked me, who is Krista Pike to you? And I just started just bawling, crying, because she's my people. She's me. We all have a story of redemption. We've all done terrible things, and I do not want to be defined by my most terrible moment. I don't want any of us to. I get it. Her most terrible moment is the worst. I understand that. And her whole life has been the worst as well. But I feel a lot of feelings when it comes to working with Krista Pike, because my heart is in that with her.
You've helped me understand this a little bit this hour, but it does seem walking in here today, I was thinking of Buddhism seeming so focused on the self, the mind, and I've wondered how does Buddhism teach you to walk alongside others who are suffering, not just, figure out how to handle it yourself?
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to these practices, I have a true faith that what we do inside of ourselves naturally has a ripple effect onto the world. So if we're inside of ourselves and hating, we're going to be bringing hatred out into the world. So anytime I'm around anybody, if you meditate with me, you're going to hear this. Thank you. Thank you. Self-care is not selfish. By taking time to welcome peace within your heart, it naturally has a ripple effect onto the world in so many ways you don't even know. And so my decades of practice of wishing ease and peacefulness upon myself, it just turns into things. Like I said, I didn't pick working on death row. It picked me. How? Through this wave of consciousness of love. Where can my love shine today? Right? Right now, it's in an interview. Right now, it's hitting the listener's ears. I hope this love hits your ears. Right? If I didn't have that love in my heart, it couldn't hit the listener's ears right now. It couldn't hit your eyes right now as we're looking into each other. It couldn't reach death row. And so taking care of our hearts, our internal experience is the most important. And watch where it takes you.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer, with Mikey Noechel of Wild Heart Meditation Center. How does Buddhist practice help us act with compassion toward others?
So, compassion is a heartfelt presence in pain. When we train our awareness to no longer hate pain, but be present with pain, and maybe even nurture pain, that's what compassion is. It is in our own human existence to hate pain. We're built for survival, not happiness. So our own survival is pain is bad. We got to get rid of pain. Great for survival. But when it actually comes to creating harmony internally and externally, compassion is the hack. So any moment right now you're in pain, notice your relationship to that pain, whether that's physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. Because what we can do is train our awareness to no longer hate pain, but hold space for that pain with compassion.
Can you give me an example of how you do that with something in your life?
Yeah.
Because I think to some people hearing this, like, embrace pain, love, I'm not sure what I'm even doing here.
Yeah, I get a little flowery.
I don't think it's overly flowery. I just think I don't want to just nod along while it's like, I don't know how to do this.
So, classic story. First things first, when the shift happened in me, I was sitting in meditation. I got an itch on my nose. And with this itch on my nose, everything in me wanted to just scratch the itch to make it go away. But I was taught this lesson to be present with pain. So, okay, I need to figure this out. How can I be present with this itch? So I turned towards it, got curious with it, felt the numbness of the itch.
With your mind, right? You're not with your hand.
Not with my mind. I didn't touch it. Just
Okay.
felt it. And just became curious. And then over time, it went away. And I learned this, that I didn't have to scratch every itch.
Ooh.
And I was using at the time. And shortly after, sober. So I taught myself to be present with that pain.
You don't have to scratch every itch.
You don't have to scratch every itch. So anxiety, I could scratch that itch with a drink. And it's like, oh no, can I be present with that? So, but I do want to get to the question about how this helps with others, because I don't necessarily hate another person. I hate what's going on inside of me in relationship to that person. So when I see something terrible and offensive, I can turn towards them and be like, I hate them. I hate those bigots. I hate those, this political party or that political party. But ultimately, I hate them because I feel a certain way inside of myself. And so that hate is just so on the surface. So can I look inward and go, when I see somebody acting out in harmful ways and bigoted ways, well, how does that make me feel? Man, that makes me feel angry. That makes me feel sad. That makes me feel like I want to do something. Okay. Can I have compassion for those things and then see where it takes me? Because it will take me in more effective ways than just hating another person.
Wow. Can you talk for a moment about dukkha?
Dukkha, yeah. Dukkha is what it's the first noble truth in Buddhism. I find my role as a modern day Buddhist teacher, I sometimes have to realign people's understanding from misunderstandings of how Buddhism was taught. Yeah. What I mean is, dukkha is often translated. I know when I took my comparative religion classes in high school and all of that, life is suffering. I was taught dukkha, Buddhism teaches life is suffering. And that's so not true. That is not what the Buddha was saying.
It makes it sound like a real downer.
Yeah, don't sign me up for that. Dukkha is the acknowledgement that there is suffering in life. There is pain in life. There is loss in life. And so this is that punk rock validation I got. That the Buddha literally said, well, literally we have it recorded that the Buddha said, I should say, that birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, not getting what one wants is dukkha, being separated from all that is dear is dukkha, and being in company of things you don't hold dear is dukkha. So it's like this validation of experience is like, life has some crappy moments, doesn't it? And when we hate that, we're suffering. When we crave pleasure to avoid pain, we're suffering. And so can we just embrace dukkha is the invitation that the Buddha offered us. So it almost is compassion. Well, it actually is compassion. This dukkha shows us like, where right now are you experiencing this subtlety to large dukkha? Is it felt? Is it thought? Is it aging, sickness, death? And can we just turn towards it? Just like not scratching the itch. Be like, what is this? What is this?
We need to close out. Can we close with this? Where do you still find yourself needing the most work?
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I got to pull out like a whole list, right?
Well, you've just been working on this so long. You think you've said a dozen things today that are profound that make me, want to go, how could this change my life? But where are you still working?
Yeah. So where I'm still working, honestly, I to get weird and Buddhist about this, we have personality types. We love personality types. But even in an old school Buddhist text called the Visuddhimagga, they talk about there is the greed type, there's the hatred type, and there's the ignorant type.
Okay.
To be the short, I'm a hateful type. When I go into places, it's irritation. I don't want to be here. Is like the classic line in my mind. So that's
the low level of the hatred type. Constant irritation.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to. So if we're talking about Krista's life mission, that's my life mission is to find how to work with this. And I feel so lucky because what is taught in Buddhism as the antidote to things like irritation, hatred, I don't want us, are things like loving kindness meditation, resting in ease and peace and gentleness, gratitude, right? So right now my work is gratitude all day. If you notice, I just walked into this conversation expressing gratitude to you, live on the ones and twos over there, it is such a honor to be able to have the work that needs to be done within myself to express that gratitude in every moment. So my work is awesome. I feel grateful to even be able to do the work.
Well, let me express some gratitude to you, Mikey Noechel, who teaches at the Wild Heart Meditation Center in East Nashville and does so much more punk rock on the side. Thank you so much for inspiring us today.
Yeah, peace and love. Thank you. Thanks, Nashville. What's up?
Well, thank you, Nashville. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. We air these profile interviews most Mondays. If you need another to queue up, find humorous Andy Marie Tillman, another East Sider, in our podcast feed. She brought us nostalgia while bringing us to tears with her impressions from her Appalachian hometown. You can listen at thisisnashville.org as well. Tasha A.F. Lindley's our managing editor, board operator, Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind that theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. The conversation doesn't have to end here. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show, leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on the socials at This Is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.